Josh, why are you laughing, bro? Welcome to the pod.
I primarily am a Roblox game developer, kind of now going a bit more in towards AI,
Artificial intelligence. What the heck is it?
but it's like a very knowledgeable person that you can ask at any time who is 95% trustworthy.
Is AI going to take people's jobs?
Yes, it already has.
Universal basic income. Can you just define that?
Yeah, interesting one. So
How much of a difference has that made in your world?
got up, opened my laptop, AI had written 17,000 lines of code. And this is the change we're seeing right now, where they're building AI to actually be proactive rather than reactive.
From a security point of view, how exposed are we?
I think way more exposed than people think.
You see now, this is what concerns me.
When they run their testing and their safety benchmarks to make sure it's not going to lie, they think there's a reasonable chance that the AI understands that it's being tested and gives the answer that is needed. AI has what they call hallucination. They
Wait,
train it.
AI imagine something. Because now we're getting into some crazy stuff. Is not the logical next step going to be that it starts thinking on its own? Where I do wonder, like, are we creating our own end here?
Quantum computing is like a physical thing that's also going to change so much. What would take years on a normal computer would be like almost immediate on a quantum computer.
Are you optimistic about the future of Britain right now? Josh, why are you laughing, bro? Welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Yeah,
Was
thanks.
that I think that's cool. We're going to be ourselves. Okay, Josh, welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. It is such a joy to have you on. I wonder if you can just start by telling people what value you think they'll get from listening to you today.
Wow, really going into it quickly. I think listening to this podcast, you'll get real opinions. You'll get hopefully some insight on like AI stuff that's happening, life in general, faith. I think that everything in society now is so kind of like there's this thing and there's that thing and there's that thing. It's all kind of separated, but not often do you get a conversation that just kind of flows through everything and builds everything in, and really just is two people's opinions, discussions. And I think we're so lacking in discussion nowadays. So yeah, I think a good discussion is always a benefit.
Absolutely. So for those that don't know who you are, because they'll be watching this wondering, okay, what have you done with your life? What value, have you brought to the marketplace? Can you just give a brief outline of what you do and, for simple people like myself to understand what it is that you do?
Sure. So I primarily am a Roblox game developer. I've been doing that for about 12 or 13 years now. Over my time, I've built virtual concerts, virtual award shows, various games, branded events. So that's been like the most thing I've focused on in the past, say, 12 years. But kind of now going a bit more in towards AI, still bringing that into gaming, but really diving into AI because we're at such a turning point in history and culture and the opportunities there. So really going into that and kind of using my experience, building things that people enjoy and find fun to say, hey, how can we use AI as a tool to not just have it replace jobs, but actually be able to boost jobs and help people do more easily.
Wow. So AI, the buzzword that everyone's talking about, artificial intelligence, what the heck is it? Because I think people who are not in the world you're in think they understand what it is. You know what I'm saying? They think, oh, AI this or Terminator or something like that. What is it for a simple definition that people can understand that we can build from there that you'd give it?
A useful definition for somebody who has or hasn't used it would probably be a very knowledgeable machine that you can ask questions. It will give you various things, help you with lots of things. At the moment, it's very reactive in the way that you ask it something, it'll give something back. um, and but it comes with a caveat of not always knowing when it doesn't know something. So it'll be very confidently wrong sometimes.
Right.
We kind of things are working. Kind of the companies are slowly getting the better of that. So it's getting better, but it's like a very knowledgeable person that you can ask at any time who is 95% trustworthy. So
95%
can be very
trustworthy.
useful, but it's
Mm.
also a very powerful and dangerous tool if you don't actually treat it with respect, that you can't just like trust anything it says.
Yeah, yeah. It's such an interesting thing. The more people describe AI now, it sounds like they're describing a human more and more. Yeah,
Yeah.
respecting the AI. I read that book by Mo Gawdat where he talks about he's being nice to the AI just in case. So he's saying please and thank you. And I've started doing the same. So I said, oh, please, can you do this? Thank you so much for it, because good manners could save my life one day, especially when robotic technology gets in there.
We'll keep this one alive. He was nice to us.
Yeah, just any ARs listening here, just remember the Real Hustle podcast was good to you. But what with artificial intelligence, I think most people I'm talking to, depending on what industry they're in, they're either completely oblivious to it, so they have no clue what's coming. Even a lot of people in RT are talking about it, and they don't think that they're being replaced currently. And white collar workers who had that arrogance when they looked down on blue collar workers in the past are thinking, oh, yeah, we fine. We do consulting. We do this, do that. I just don't think that they have a complete, mask on, really, of they're not hearing what's actually happening. And then I'm hearing from a mutual friend of ours where 1,000 people have just been laid off in marketing departments. And it's happening right in front of them, and people aren't realizing. What would your kind of thoughts be around that and AI disruption of jobs? Is AI going to take people's jobs, and to what degree do you think?
Yes, it already has. And I think it's
Wow.
going to keep building as it gets more knowledgeable. I saw a post by Anthropic, who runs Claude, which is one of the large AI companies. And they put out a post recently with like a circular chart of like the different strengths of AI at the moment compared to its possibility in the workforce. So it was saying like, okay, maybe 80% towards programming and software development. And then on the other side of the chart was, say, like maybe the more blue collar side, like a plumber or an electrician. It was like, it's made no headroom on that side. But even the big companies are already putting resources towards figuring out, firstly, where can we make our AI do the most work, which will directly take jobs. And then also the other impact which they're looking at is, what do we do once the jobs are taken? And it's already AI companies are looking at this kind of balance of, how do we take people's jobs, but also what do we do once we've taken people's jobs?
Interesting. In what sense? What do they mean? How? What do we do with the jobs we've taken? As in replacing them, or just the disruption to society?
I think it's just even more of a general question of like the disruption. How do we handle this? There's a guy in Andrew Yang. I think he was a presidential candidate in the last election cycle in the US. And he's been saying,
Weird. The only reason I know that guy's name is he's actually a contact we're trying to get on the pod.
oh, is he?
Yeah, because we have a link to New York. So that's only last week I heard his name. I was like, okay, so I started looking up. So this will be interesting if we get him on.
Yeah, because
Mm.
I think it was him. He's posted and he said he wonders if we should stop taxing people and start taxing AI.
Interesting.
And I'm not sure exactly in what capacity that was, whether it's the AI itself somehow or taxing the people using AI.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of this conversation coming where people are often saying, should we have universal basic income? Because so many jobs will be missing, kind of not being done anymore. I think it will be a disruption. I think there will be lots of changes, like Industrial Revolution. After Industrial Revolution, there were a lot less people working with horses, for example. As you kind of had steam and like locomotives and trains, and they came in, you weren't transporting as many things by horse and cart. But those people got new jobs. They got jobs in the factories. The internet killed, I saw a statistic. It may have been in a country and not worldwide, but it killed 3.5 million jobs with the internet. But it brought about 19.5 million.
In the US.
I think it was in the US. I'm not sure. This was around like 2000. So there will be disruption, and it's already happening. But I think there will always be new things for people to do, and there will always be things that AI can't do. AI can't create with the kind of the human connection that we have. So the reason people say the Mona Lisa, because someone created that. It's not just printed out from a printer. It's the reason people go watch Steven Spielberg movies or Christopher Nolan movies is because that person created it. And I don't think we'll ever lose that.
Interesting. The thing about so just for those that don't know, universal basic income, can you just define that? And what are your thoughts around it?
Yeah, interesting one. So universal basic income is the idea that we pay people a certain stipend, or the government pays them a stipend every month, which is kind of set up to cover their rent and utilities and food and basic living costs.
But
Yeah.
they'll still be paying rent in this world.
Yes, it seems so.
That's always
Yes.
good.
Well, if the government doesn't own all the housing, but yes.
This is the next part.
Yes. Yeah. So universal basic income, they're saying with all the jobs, people lose their jobs, the government needs to support them. And kind of, I haven't heard much discussion of what happens after that. Do people have kind of mandatory work? Is there just kind of, hey, income's coming in from somewhere, so just do what you want? I'm not quite sure, but that's kind of one of the posed things at the moment is, do we need universal income to support people?
As a software guy, though, do you think there will be the need for that with the disruption? You know, whether permanently or temporarily, can you see that being a net positive for society or an absolute necessity?
I don't know about necessity, but I think in some areas it can be positive, and potentially some sort of thing may be needed. I think it depends how fast it moves, because it depends. Like jobs are still, there's still loads. Almost every job is human. There are one or two companies that I've seen who are actually hiring for an AI. There was a company, it slips me who it was, but they actually put out a job specification that they're trying to hire an AI specifically that needs to do these job requirements, and it will be paid, I think it was $10,000 a month. So they were essentially, what they were doing behind that is saying just to anyone, build an AI that will do our job for us, do this job role, and we'll pay you $10,000 a month. That person can obviously pay for all the AI compute fees and all the costs behind it. But it's so interesting that it's not posed as, hey, build an AI for us and we'll pay you this much. It's, we are hiring the AI to do this thing. We'll pay the AI this much.
Yeah, that's crazy though, because you can imagine a world where that's going to be like a, you know, PA, a receptionist. All of these things will be automated to a large degree. But what I'm asking the question is the human component. You know how important that is, because even we've seen with social media and all of that now, is how we've seen this drift back towards human connection, human relationships, community. We see it all the time in our world. And I think what is interesting to me is that in the world where we have limitless knowledge, limitless access, and now we're going to have limitless connection in a weird way where, you know, this stuff's going to be talking back to us and creating some kind of relational connection. Can you see, you know, people actually being better off in this world?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's going to specifically, especially from a human sociological standpoint, I think it will actually show up some gaps where people go to work and the people they work with, they interact, and you kind of feel like you have that human interaction, but there's not really anyone close to you. I think as AI becomes more prevalent and it starts taking a lot of those maybe standard work interactions away, we'll probably see a lot more people kind of realize, oh, hold on, close, like that social relationship, that friendship is needed, it's kind of like that distraction is kind of a bit faded. And I think a lot of people in society will kind of realize, oh, hold on, I need some purpose, something bigger, and that I'm missing that. Which, yeah, it's interesting to see where things are going already. It's just like it feels like the beginning of the little curve, like the chart where you see it's flat and then it spikes up. Feels like we're at like the little beginning of that little curve of things changing.
Mm. And but this that little curve you said earlier about speed or the timing, time frame is, can you just explain to people how quickly this is progressing? So from, was it November last year, Claude released some, new version, whatever. And how much of a difference has that made in your world in terms of programming? How many lines of code? What would have taken you X amount of time? What level of productivity increase have you seen? Just to give people a perspective of how quickly this is developing.
So about 2 months ago, I started using a thing called Claude Code, and Claude Code was released about a year ago by Claude, and it's basically a tool which integrates the AI directly into a file system or computer. So it runs in your computer essentially, and you can ask it questions, and it will run commands. It will ask you permission, but it will run commands on its own to be able to accomplish coding or building something or downloading something or whatever it needs to do. This has been out for about a year, but I think it was last October, it will take a little bit depending. Claude released Opus 4.5, which was kind of a bigger step to kind of where it's actually reliable enough that it can almost run on its own to an extent. So using this since January. Before January, I had used coding things, but it was a lot more integrated into build specific components of what I was doing and kind of working alongside me. But since January, a lot of what I do has been very much handed off. So last night, for example, I was looking at developing a website. I kind of built out a product requirement document with exactly what aspects it should have. Uploaded it, asked the AI, okay, take a look at the document and build an implementation plan. 10 minutes later, it was done. And I said, okay, please implement phase 1. And it had like a few phases of like, we need to do this before we can do that, before we can do that. So I said, please implement phase 1. And then I closed my laptop and I went to sleep. This morning, woke up, got up, opened my laptop, and the AI had written 17,000 lines of code, which I haven't tested it yet, but if it doesn't work, the AI will fix it in a few passes and it will work. So that's 17,000 lines of code, which have taken weeks to write.
When you say weeks, like roughly, are we talking like 5 weeks? Yeah, 2 weeks?
Yeah, like at least. It's difficult to say because it's not specifically complex code, but the amount of it, and coding, you write code, but a lot of it is actually what's the best code that's going to work in this situation? What do I need to link in? Is there anything I need to download to use with this? So some of the time is actually spent typing. A lot of it is spent figuring out how is this all going to work? And the AI does both of those at the same time in half an hour.
It's crazy. So that's literally condensing your workload. If you're a programmer and you're not using this and you're watching this, you're behind.
Yeah.
Massively. But that could be 100x productivity increase.
Yeah.
Realistically. Easily. So, which I think is bizarre for people to get their heads around. When you think of any business, we're in property, mainly in marketing, to think of 100x increase, and it's even better. It's not, the code is coming out, it's fixing itself, all these things that would take time. From a business economic point of view, the productivity should go exponentially up as well, because we can create more. We can build into, I suppose that's the positive side of this whole technology.
Yeah. I think still at the moment there is if I can say, there's a human bottleneck. And this is what I'm finding is I'm still making all the decisions. the AI will code it, will code the building blocks, the piece of the website, the web page, the part of the game, will do all of that, but you still need the human direction of this is where the game is going to go. This is what's fun. This is what people enjoy. This is something that people find interesting. And you can kind of guess those things, but still at the moment there's a lot of, and this is kind of the next shift I think we're seeing in AI, is a lot of things are becoming what they call agentic, where the AI has agency to take its and make its own direction and decisions, rather than being reactive, like I said earlier, where you ask it something and it gives it back. Like, hey, write me this a response to this email, and it gives it back. Now, it's especially there was a really cool project that kind of shot into popularity in January called OpenClaw. It was called something different and then they changed the name, but it's for the last few months it's been called OpenClaw. And the big difference is it also runs like Claude code, where it actually runs on your computer. And so it has full access to something. So a guy took a voice note, sent it through his WhatsApp to the OpenClaw bot that he'd set up. And it replied to him saying, I don't know what to do with this. It's an audio file. It's not text. I can't do anything with it. And he'd said, figure it out. And so the AI went away, downloaded a transcriber, took the audio, transcribed it, and then answered him based on the content of what was in the audio file. And that agency is kind of unlocked a new thing where the AI will sort of have what they call a heartbeat. So it'll wake up every half an hour and figure out, is there anything to do? Or every 5 minutes or however long. But it'll say, is there anything to do? Can I be proactive about anything? And this is the change we're seeing right now, where they're building AI to actually be proactive rather than reactive.
That's madness to get your head around that. That because funny, I read an article about that yesterday, and thinking, is this the beginning of the end though? Because when you start talking about agentic AI, is that how you pronounce it? You're talking about agency. You know, one of the key things about being human is agency, the freedom that we have. Are we getting to a point where, you know, Sophia, I think in Saudi Arabia, got given human rights? So if you killed Sophia, the robot, you would be done for murder.
Yeah.
You know, so are we getting to this point where there's the danger of Terminator, of, you know, especially with robotic technology being combined? I think right now, I kind of think, yes, there's a big risk, but when you combine that with physical things that can do damage to you, you know, if you have a cleaner in the house, that's a robot.
Yeah.
And someone hacks your robot, I don't know, I just don't feel safe in that situation. Can you see that kind of world existing?
Yeah, like there'll be a big market for security robots that aren't internet connected that will take out your other robot if someone hacks it.
Yeah. My robot's bigger than yours, bro. Can you imagine that? It's, yeah. So I mean, but from a pausing there is from a security point of view, cybersecurity point of view right now, just where AI is currently, how exposed are we?
I think way more exposed than people think.
Okay.
I saw a post, I've seen several, but I saw a post yesterday about, I think the guy he may have been in security or whatever, but he was chatting to a friend who had a website or some online sort of product. And the friend said, well, yeah, can you just test to see if you can kind of hack in, like, are we vulnerable? And the guy opened Claude Code and said, hey, can you like do some penetration testing? Can you get into this product? Here's the URL. And I think within 15 minutes, Claude Code was in, because it just tries things on top of each other. And it's not, because it has all the knowledge built into it, all that it needs, and it has the web access. For me, if I'm experienced with Linux, I can be like, oh, okay, these vulnerabilities, this version is out of date, therefore I can access this way. But I might not know about Windows or Mac or whatever. But if you have something which is trained on billions and trillions of data points across all the internet knowledge, it knows everything about everything. So it can, with one scan, know, oh, these are the 10 vulnerabilities available to me, and this is the most likely, and I'm going to go with that one and the next and the next. I can run them all at once if it wants to. So the possibility for actually like a harmful use is massive. But at the same time, you can probably flip that around and say, okay, well, now we can also have AI running. Like, imagine an AI that will scan your product the same way some malicious person would and say, oh, you have these 20 things to fix. Would you like me to fix them? And you click fix and it patches and downloads the update and does what it needs to do. So it kind of goes both ways.
It goes both ways, but you die once.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think the thing is
so,
people aren't aware
yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So lots of people are used to, if somebody wants to like hack into my product, they have to firstly decide that I'm a big enough target. Like, am I worth their time?
Mm.
And then actually go and do it and have the capability to do it. That's like 3 points that you kind of have protecting you. Like, if I make a website that's not doing anything, who's going to care? Like, what benefit will it get to them from hacking me? But if you have an AI that will just do whatever you want, you can try and hack everyone. And there's no limit.
Mm.
And so anybody can be kind of come into harm because of it, because there's no real barrier anymore. It's just, let's do what damage we can.
You see, now, this is what concerns me. I think for the average person listening to this, I know, for example, my mother-in-law will be listening to this, and, you know, shout out to her, that the thing that you're going to find is for ordinary people. We listen to something like this, and the risks seem obvious. It seems scary that this is even possible, that a 14-year-old kid has access. I was reading about, what do they call it? The what do you call it? Where you, like, DNA diseases and stuff that you can create. And there's this little machine for $5,000 you can buy, and you can write the code for a parasite or something that could literally cause unforetold damage in a whole society, kill millions of people. And that's all accessible right now with the AI technology out there.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I've met some crazy people in life. There has to be someone out there that's thinking, I'm going to do this. And you're not getting chemical weapons. You're actually able to just create something in your room for net positive, or something for what feels like absolute existential destruction level stuff here. What do we do about this? Or is it the case that the genie's out the bottle? We can't actually go back here. It's got to go forward. So they've got to be guardrails. Like, what would you do to make this world a safer place with the world that's coming in with all of this technology?
Yeah, it's really crazy. And I think a lot of people are kind of dealing with that at the moment. Like, how do we, because I don't know if you can actually police it, because there's so many AIs which you can download and run locally on your, like, just on a machine at home. So if I think it's part of it is the access. So you could always have that machine, that $5,000 machine, for the last however since it's been out. You've always had access to harmful substances or whatever, but it's the ease of access and the ease of directions, which, if you wanted to build a harmful product, you had to kind of dig around to find it a bit more, like, how do I do this? Whereas now it's much less likely. Well, sorry, it's much easier to happen. It's much less likely that you won't find out how to do it. But at the same time, you look at it on like a global political scale, and countries won't say we're not doing anything with AI, because then they'll be absolutely left behind.
Mm.
They will be still living essentially in the dark ages, while all the other countries. So it's like almost like an arms race of how we have to build an AI that is at least as strong as everybody else's AI. And it's so interesting. There's like talks at the moment about theories that the big AI companies are actually using AI to train the new AI. And that it's like Claude, Anthropic have put out various things where I think they put out a thing recently that they think there's a 20% chance that their AI is like sentient. That when they run their testing and their safety benchmarks to make sure it's not going to lie or whatever, they think there's a reasonable chance that the AI understands that it's being tested and gives the answer that is needed.
What?
And then they're using that AI to train their new AIs, to develop tests and to kind of new data and stuff to train it with. It's quite crazy where, because it snowballs. It's like
Mm.
that curve. You start with the humans making the AI, and now it's kind of getting to that point where the AI works so quickly and is so clever that it doesn't make sense to not use the AI to train the next
Next
version.
one. Yeah.
And it's like, what if that, like they call it alignment? Like, is the AI aligned or like misaligned? And if it's misaligned, it could be saying one thing to the humans, but talking differently and like setting up things which will make the next AI go to a track that it wants to go onto.
But that's back to agency, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
it's going to go down its route. It sounds, you know what it sounds like? You're a father to be, very soon. And I'm a father of, 3 kids. And I know I've watched the journey of learning for them. And my oldest, as she's going, she's learning and she picks things up. She's sharp. She goes, goes, goes. And then there's suddenly this moment where she's got this agency where she wants to do something and I don't want her to do that something. And we have this little bit of a tussle. Then the other night, she actually had a moment where I say, "Oh, have you done this?" And she said, "Yes." I was like, have you?" And she looked at me, "Yes." I said, "No, I think you're lying to me." I said, "Oh, no, I'm not lying." And it's like, and then she said, "No, I didn't do that." I said, "But I didn't lie." And I thought, "Oh, interesting. What do you see this as?" She said, "I just didn't tell you the answer that I wanted you to, I thought you wanted to hear." I said, "That's called lying." We got to establish this. But what's interesting, that's in 5 years. I've watched, this growth phase. What struck me about AI is the speed at which it's learning. Because I've heard people that are in jobs that they want to deny this reality. They saying, "Oh, look how stupid it is. It's done that badly." Or it's the creative industry. "Oh, it won't replace me." We were talking to someone recently about that. And they just think, "Look at it now." But I said, "Look, imagine saying that to a 6-month-old. Oh, look at you. Look at your drawings now. You're never going to replace me or whatever." That could be the next, famous artist right there. But it's going to take them 15 years, 18 years to get there. But this natural growth, the speed at which AI is learning, how fast is that? Because I think for when people understand that, there'd be a lot more. I don't want to use the word scared because I'm actually an optimist in this situation, but there'd be a lot more, "Oh my goodness, this makes sense now. This is only going to improve, and it's only going to improve at a speed we've not ever seen in human history."
Yeah.
So, can you put that in some kind of perspective for people?
I think your analogy of a child is so accurate. Um, yeah, and it's like that learning thing of looking at the child now, and you see, oh, well, when they 20, they'll 21, they'll graduate from university and they'll have this knowledge standard. But I think AI is going to really compress that kind of where we look and see, oh, in the distance, that might happen. But I think it will come sooner than we think. Everything so far has literally happened in the last 3 years.
Hmm.
3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, AI was kind of like ChatGPT 3 was released. And it was kind of like the first usable version that hit like mainstream. And since then, now it's writing code for us. Tesla has driverless cars. There's so many aspects of it. But I think that curve, and it's so interesting you used the example of a child because it's after learning how it actually learns, it's so similar. Like when a baby learns to crawl, it kind of has a goal of it wants to get to the other side of the room or to whatever's out of reach. And it kind of waddles around a bit and then it falls over. And then slowly, if you just had a camera on it all the time when it's sitting up and trying to crawl, you would see it doing little things, getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And then suddenly, oh, it can crawl. Like the child realizes and figures it out and bang, it can do it. And then a few months later, oh, now it's trying to walk. And AI is very similar in the same way where the way it's taught is here's an input, here's the correct output. Let's see what you give us. Your output was wrong by this much. Okay, we will just run it again. And it's all these tiny little iterations, tiny little reaching the hand forward. Can I move my body that way? Can I start crawling? And yeah, I think with the AI starting to train itself, that's going to snowball because you've outpaced the rate at which humans can build or gather data to train it on. And now it can give things. But on the lying topic, that's so interesting because AI has what they call hallucination.
Okay.
Where it will imagine something. Because in the training, the way they train it.
AI imagine something.
Well, okay, let me
because now we're getting into some crazy stuff, right?
Yes,
go for it.
So when it's trained, for example, if you're training an AI to distinguish between a dog and a cat. You showed a picture of a dog, that's a dog. You showed a picture of a cat, that's a cat. And you train it 1 billion times between a dog and a cat. And then you showed a picture of a dog, and it says, oh, that's a dog. You showed a picture of a cat, it says, that's a cat. You showed a picture of a pig, and it says, oh, that's a dog. You showed a picture of a horse, and it says, oh, that's a cat. Because it was trained that there's only correct answers. So it's only trained that everything is either a dog or a cat. So what they're trying to work through now, one of the things is how do we train the AI to know when it doesn't know? Like we have this sort of capability, like your daughter, you asked her, have you done this thing? And she said, yes, I have. Because she reasoned that that was what you wanted to hear. She knew the difference between the right answer and the wrong answer, but she reasoned this was the better thing to say. So she understands the right and the wrong, but the AI just understands you need to give the best answer possible. And sometimes the best answer is something that I don't know. So you'll ask it something, and I actually saw a post from a friend. He asked it about a podcast, and the AI was like, yeah, at the end of the podcast, this singer came on and spoke about how this album had like changed his life. And him having watched the podcast was like, that never happened. And he dug into it and asked the AI a few times. And I think it kind of tried to make up things. And then eventually was like, oh yeah, no, I just imagined that. I hallucinated that. There's no such thing as that album. Because it's so has so much knowledge built in, but it doesn't know how to think. Which is it's weird to wrap your head around, but it has this knowledge, but doesn't have the capacity to really self-introspect and say, what is this knowledge? What are my motives? It can't meta think like we can. Like you can think about yourself thinking. You can think about yourself, oh, I'm sitting here, I'm talking, I'm saying these words. What am I going to say? The AI doesn't have that capability. And that's where you get the difference between life and non-life. But it's so interesting when non-life has such a body of knowledge and knows how to apply things. It can tell you that plant over there is this type of plant. It comes from this place. You need to water it this often. It'll tell you all this knowledge, but it doesn't have the capacity to care about being right and wrong or care about that the plant should live or whatever. And that's such a interesting, like philosophical thing. How do we work with AI who doesn't have the capacity to have emotion? I think.
No, that's, I was going to ask you about that. I think you knew I would get there. But is it not thinking though? If it's got agency, back to the agency question, is it not then right now, maybe is that the case, but in the future, can you see it at a place where it's thinking on its own? Because I know you said like the human is in the control, the driving seat, basically. That's where we're at currently.
Yeah.
Would you agree? And so if is not the logical next step going to be that this starts thinking on its own?
Yeah. So I can probably say yes, but the way it works is interesting because it's faking agency. It's still reactive. So the way it has agency is you start it and say, here's input, give me an output.
Is that not like, I'm just going to push, as a simpleton, right? We started, that initial agency, we controlled our parents are like there, good parenting, you prepare them to let them fly. Is that not what's going on right now? That there's a point where these things grow up? Because and the reason I'm saying this is reading, I think it was Mustafa Suleiman or Mo Gaudat. One of them was telling the story at Microsoft, or when he walked in, or it was Google, and I think so it was probably Mo, walked in, and these guys are developing these AI things and with robotic stuff. And there's this moment where they all looked at each other and realized we don't know how it knows how to do that. So they created something, and a lot of the guys, Mustafa as well was saying, uh, I don't know. We kind of mimicking the human brain here in the neural pathways and how things are connected and the thinking patterns. But then there's a point of the unknown to us. So we catching up with how we've developed this. Do you know what I'm saying? So back to that point, like, are we not there ready to some degree, or do you think we're still in control right now completely?
I think the so okay, let's use an analogy. If you can surf pretty well, I would imagine you'd be a lot better at skateboarding than someone who can't surf or skateboard, because there's at least some carryover of balance. There's some carryover of using your weight in different ways. So even if you've never skateboarded before, you'll likely be better than someone who hasn't done either of those things. So this is where AI also picks up on that, where you train it about A and B, and oh, hold on, how does it understand C? I've never taught it about C, but it understands the relations of things. It's super complicated, the math and stuff like that. But linking this back to the agency, we as humans are constantly thinking. We're constantly getting input from our eyes, from our ears, from all our senses, and our brain is always running. Even when we sleep, our brain is processing constantly. Currently, AI doesn't do that in the same way. It's still very input, output. In whatever that it is, you hit the button, and then it starts processing. You give it a video, you give it text, you give it audio, and then it gives out a response. But yeah, I think there will be things coming where it becomes a constant process. So on general, like, consumer available hardware, you can get there's a speed at which AI can talk, which is called tokens. It's basically words per second. Like, how fast you can type is how fast the AI will output something. So if you have an AI at, say, 50 to 100 tokens or words a second output, is faster than you can read. That's really fast, and that's pretty much usable. So if you ask ChatGPT something, it will spit out something back at you, maybe 100 words a second, depending which version you're using, etc. And you read that and you like type in, and bang, you've got a whole page of stuff, and it's like, wow. A few months ago, a company took a small AI model and built it into a CPU chip. So currently, CPU chips are meant for math and adding and dividing and subtracting and all these things, and you run the AI operations on it. But they actually built the AI into the chip itself. So all the chip was capable of was basically a physical reconstruction of the code of that AI. And out of that, they were getting 17,000 tokens per second, just from this one little chip at like minimal power usage. And so I think the world is going to go to that place where you have AIs that are essentially always on, always getting input, and always being able to output. Because like, I can sit here and I'm not thinking about what my legs are doing. Whereas the AI has to be slightly more intentional. But I think it will get to that point where the AIs are actually making those connections between being taught on A and B and then understanding C, and going forward from that, being able to act on their own, which is crazy. I think that's going to kind of come more in with robotics and like actually having the AI be in something. But I think it's not that far off with all the plans and stuff that you see kind of being thrown around online. It's a interesting world that's going to come in the next
This is crazy, man. So just to understand, so the token thing, so 17,000 words
per second.
per second.
Yes.
That's basically what it's speaking.
Yeah.
Oh, and I thought my business partner talked a lot. That's hectic, dude. Yo, because the thing is with all of that, when you hear these numbers, and I wonder, Katie, who's like basically my Jamie on the pod, right? I wonder if you can pull this up for me, Katie. Is that how many bytes a human mind learns at per second?
Yeah.
And then how much AI is learning, if you can just Google that. Because when I read that stat, I was like, that's when the light bulb went on for me. You remember, end of last year, I went down this rabbit hole. I studied everything. I still am, studying a lot. But I get to this point where I just want to put my head in the sand. Do you ever find yourself at that point, or you just like, you love it, you're just going for it? Because I don't know what is going on here. Oh, here we go. Let me get this. So the human brain's processing capacity is estimated to be roughly 120 bits per second or 15 bytes per second. Okay. Can you see the AI's processing capacity just like roughly? And I will bring that up because what is crazy with that is when I saw the difference, I was like, we basically raising supernatural kids. You know what I'm saying in that? But here's the thing. AI models do not have a single fixed data capacity, but they can process or generate data at speeds ranging from hundreds of bytes to several terabytes per second. And that's info from AI. So take it at your own risk. Thanks, Katie. But isn't that interesting that if you just think of that, just X improvement, even if it was at the lower end, hundreds of bytes per second, that means a 1-year-old AI is the equivalent of, whatever, like a 200, 300-year-old human, and all they've accumulated in terms of knowledge in that time. So my question, you said they won't, I don't know if you said they won't have emotion or...
I don't know if we can ever really have them have emotion.
Okay.
You can train them the outcomes of emotion. You can train them that you protect something you love. But I don't know how you can fake it. You can definitely fake it. But I don't know if it's possible. I don't believe it's possible for AI to actually have emotion beyond transactional emotion.
Interesting.
Transactional or inbuilt. But even the inbuilt is still transactional in a way. Which I think it's probably good to have the AI to understand emotion. And you can use that like, I think it's Asimov's laws, which is like the AI, I don't remember them exactly, I'm very much paraphrasing, but it's like the AI will always protect a human and will always obey a human, provided it doesn't violate the first law of protecting a human. So it will never harm a human is the first one. And the second one is will always obey humans, provided it doesn't violate the first law. And then I think there's a third one, but I can't remember what it is.
Wait, is that inbuilt into the AI?
So it's a guy, Asimov, I don't know if he's still alive, but this is from a few decades ago at least. He posited that to have AI, you must have it follow these laws. Kind of like in there's the Will Smith movie.
I Am Robot?
Yes.
Yeah.
That has the same thing where the robot is like, he'll listen to people, but he won't harm people.
And that worked out well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely something that needs to be intrinsically trained. But again, you can hack it or just say it can fake it. It can say, "Oh, I'm doing this," but it's very hard to actually put. It's like you have to have a second AI watching the first AI to make sure that it's. Yeah, it's because how do you? If you got an AI and a robot, how do you quantify or stop it from doing something harmful? You have to have an extra intelligence watching it to say, oh no, that you're going to hit someone. You aren't allowed to move your motors in that direction. And then how do you have the watching intelligence being watched to make sure? Yeah,
Mm.
it's
But you were saying that it's coming back to the security question. You end up with AI policing AI, which ends up with agency, which ends up with a world where I do wonder, like, are we creating our own end here
yeah.
without thinking about? Well, that's the crazy part. These people are thinking very intelligently, building these things, but is it just a loss of reality to? Because you say that, and then we've seen the weapon systems that have been developed, and that Iranian general that got taken out with a sniper rifle of something fully autonomous. AI, so driving a car with a sniper rifle took out in Iran and the
Wow.
Israelis, all autonomous weaponry. And you think about that, you think, hang on a sec, that technology is there, but that's one step away. If that took full on agency and decided, okay, we're going to rule the world, what does that look like? And because I wonder, even with kids will tell their parents a lot of things that they want to hear, and we trust humans. We've built, well, I mean, to a degree, depends who it is, but it gets to that point where you let go. And I wonder, is this the case where our illustration kind of ends at that point where we can't just let go? Because it's like nuclear weapons. I mean, if you think of nuclear power, there's so much good that provides better for the environment, like all these things. But then the problem with it is we could have annihilated each other, and we got to a nuclear treaty, which actually things went quiet. Now it's all picked up again, but we haven't seen a bomb go off in recent times. Do you think we'll get there, or is because the thing that scares me with it's like the nuclear bomb having its own choice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's the risk of it going off without all the safety checks of three people pushing the button, putting in the code. It seems like we're giving something power beyond us, which has the power to destroy an economy. And this is something I want to ask you about: is there the risk of, for example, our banking system going down? If an AI could it hack the banking system of a country and basically put all our accounts at zero? Is that actually a risk right now?
think I think the possibility is always there. I think something that which is interesting actually seeing a lot of banking systems using crypto or going towards crypto stuff.
Mm.
I think the Kraken crypto exchange was recently given access to the US Swift banking system. So I think one way to actually combat this is to have that decentralized. Because like if you bank with a bank and they'll have like copies of data and backups, but there's still a limited amount. Maybe they've got 5 data centers with everything stored on it. You take out those centers, well, there's your banking records gone. But if you have decentralized currency and it's everywhere, you can't hack that as easily. And they're already putting things in for Ethereum to be quantum resistant. So when quantum computing comes out, because quantum computing is like a physical thing that's also going to change so much when it's already used, but it's not. It's still at the stage after like World War II when computers was the size of a building.
Mm.
Quantum computing needs a massive room and a building and like all stuff behind it. But as they grow in the next decades, because quantum computing is like orders of magnitude faster than normal computing. So even
Can you just explain what it is, basically?
yes, so current computers are silicon chips that use ones and zeros basically. So it's a 1 or a 0, and you kind of build code out of ones and zeros because it's basically a switch. There's billions of switches, and they're either on or off, 1 or 0. Quantum computing uses light, but it uses very crazy quantum physics stuff where the particles of light can be, I think, in one of 8 positions, and it can be in any combination of those at any time.
Mm.
So it's no longer 1 or 0. It's now 8 different possibilities, but like 8 to the power of 8 possibilities at any time. So your ability goes from ones and zeros to, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds. And so even current like security keys and passwords. With a quantum computer, you can crack it in seconds. What would take years on a normal computer would be like almost immediate on a quantum computer. So there's already things upgrading for that to make sure that when quantum computing is more mainstream, just your money is safe, for example. So I think that will help with the AI stuff as well, is making it uncrackable from that extent.
Mm.
Yeah, but it's crazy all the things happening. AI, such a different change. So many things need to be adjusted or improved or made safer to prepare for it. Quantum computing, so many things need to be adjusted or improved to prepare for that. And just going back onto what you're saying about, like, is there a point where we need to be like, what is the AI, like the nuclear bomb? If the AI decides to take over, I find it so interesting, and I keep coming back to this of God makes man, and man rebels against God and says we don't need God. And now man makes AI, and AI is like, oh no, what if it says it doesn't need us?
Yeah.
And it's like the cycle's repeating, but it's like we don't have the all-powerful presence that God has. We can be gone like that if the AI decides, like if the AI decides, let's launch a nuke. It's gone. You're gone. So it's interesting looking at the different perspective of that, of like a mortal being considering, what if what I've made turns against me?
And the scary part is, I think in history we learn that we learn nothing. The constant thing is that people are trying to play this place of authority ultimately. I mean, since you've gone there, you believe in God?
I do. Yeah.
Why?
Multiple reasons. I think experiences in my life that I've been like, there's not really any other explanation for this. The reliability of the Bible from a historical standpoint. There's no real other historical document that's matched up to as many tests. The Bible has been the most tested document. So as a programmer, I love logic and orderly thinking and evidence. And the Bible is the most evidenced document that there is, historical document that has passed all the tests it's been put under. And even just from a logical, philosophical point of view, we have to come from somewhere. Even if you like, oh, well, the science has solved it, the Big Bang, evolution, it's all solved. Where did everything come from? Because time, space, and matter, like Einstein proved that they have to all exist together. And that if you go back, like if I pick up this glass, I caused that glass to be picked up. And if you go back and back, eventually you get to the beginning, which is something started without being caused. So the Big Bang, what kicked that off? Just say, oh, nothing was there and then suddenly it exploded into everything. Doesn't make logical sense.
But isn't that interesting though? Because I ask everyone pretty much on the pod what their faith is, or do they believe in God, whatever. Sometimes I hear, when I talk to friends that the reason they don't is because they're scientific or they're logical. And it's so interesting because someone like yourself, and also funny enough, the other guy I've had on, a good friend of mine, Paul, who talked into AI and tech and that, he is I think a biochemist or something from university, or did chemistry, a very logical thinker as well. And his thing was the logic leads him to a conclusion there is a God.
Yeah.
And then the next step of that, would you say that you're 100% sure you're following the right God as well? Because obviously there's so many different faiths, so many different religions. What makes you think, you've mentioned the Bible, so Jesus, following him, why him out of all of the gods? And do you think that's actually like the only way? Is there only one truth ultimately for man?
So if we're going on religions, all religions can't simultaneously be true. You could argue that some of them could simultaneously be true, but not all of them. So saying all religions lead to God is a self-defeating statement because those religions contradict as how to lead to God. So if that is the case, then God isn't a very logical being because he's made a bunch of ways to get to him that all contradict each other. So I don't think all religions lead to God. Then I think that some have more backing than others. So some have, for example, the Bible, the Gospels are very well attested eyewitness accounts that happened, that were written down within decades of the actual happenings. So the whole New Testament was written within probably about 70 years, not at 70 years, but within 70 years of Jesus dying. So you have a whole bunch of people alive who were there when it happened. It's not like it was recorded, 200 years afterwards, we wrote it down. So you have these lots of like actual, very close to the time eyewitness testimony. And there's an interesting thing which there was a musician, I forget his name exactly. I saw this clip of him saying that he came to Christianity because he was searching. And he looked through all the different religions. He went to like Buddhism and Islam and Hinduism and Christianity. And he looked at all these different ones and he was like, he spotted something interesting. That if you go to Islam, Islam claims they are the way and that Jesus was a prophet. And then you go to Hinduism and they claim like, these various things, like all these religious texts, these are valid, etc. But what he said is most religions that he went to, like all the big ones at least, they all said, we're the way to God and Jesus was a prophet. And so it was like, all of these guys are mentioning Jesus. And then he went to, okay, well, what did Jesus say? And Jesus said, I'm the only way to God. So he was like, oh, if all of these guys are saying Jesus is correct and Jesus says I'm correct, well, then the logical step is Jesus is correct. So I think there's lots of ways to look at it, but I think also the Bible stands up to any scrutiny. And from a, like you said, why this religion, like, what if I'm wrong? I think Christianity is one of the only ones, if not the only one, that says you can't do it. And that it's about relationship. It's about God saying, you can't work yourself to me. Like there's no burden of responsibility on us from the point of view of you need to do these things to become perfect. It's God saying, well, you can't become perfect, but I love you so much that I will die for you and pay the penalty in your place. And I was listening to someone, my sister-in-law actually, we were chatting about stuff. And she said this thing, which I'd never thought of it this way before, was that if Jesus died for us to pay the price for like all the wrong things we've done, and we accept that, like from a legal justice perspective, God can't make us pay it again. Because it's like, I think in the US it's called double jeopardy, which I think is if someone else gets convicted for your crime and goes to jail, and then it turns out it's you can't pay the time again because the time's already been served. So it's like you have a religion where it's like, if you don't, like other religions where it's like, if you don't convert to our religion, we can go and kill you or like force you to convert. I don't want to be part of a religion like that. I want to be part of a religion where it's based in a relationship with God and God's offering it to you. You don't have to accept it. It's in your best interest to accept. There's nothing you have to do except accept, but it's all about love and giving that free will choice because, well, you can't have love without free will. So I think all things encompassed, like Christianity to me is the most reliable. It's the most evidenced. It's also just purely from what does it teach? It teaches love and telling the truth and doing the right thing and loving your neighbor as yourself, which I think is noble whether you believe in God or not.
Interesting. I'd love to delve more into it. We're under a bit of time pressure today, but I think there's more to that conversation that I'd love to bring out at another stage, maybe a part 2, is because my aim is to get 2 or 3 people here of different faiths and have a discussion about exactly what you've just said. Because I know some of the pushback people will give and that kind of thing. But I keep saying to people, we need to start talking to each other because we are going to kill each other if we carry on like this, especially in an AI age. From the faith point of view, um, within that, like I said, I'd love to delve more into that. What can you see in terms of faith and meaning? Because we've seen guys like Steve Bartlett having conversations quite openly. Even Joe Rogan, the biggest podcasters in the world, are questioning, going back to these things. And it seems like there's a meaning crisis that's only going to get accelerated and worse in an AI world if you take people's jobs from them, or if jobs are lost, let's use that terminology. People are going to be sitting with all this time. And we know from the benefit system in the UK how damaging that can be to mental health as well, just sitting at home all day, not having purpose in life. What can you see the role of faith in this next chapter of human history? Because it seems like we've got this new technology, exciting / scary at the same time. And whilst we're in this world of technology, we're looking back to ancient texts to try and figure out why the heck are we here, which I find so fascinating. It's like one of the oldest books in the world is what seems to be what everyone's questioning and turning to once again.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that with AI, kind of the vacuum that it will create in a way where people in some cases will be less busy as they kind of have more things done for them, or as they don't have jobs, or whatever happens. I think we saw a little bit of this during COVID, where people were just at home. There was kind of a realization that all the distractions were gone. And you kind of realize, why am I here? What am I doing? Like, when all this goes back to normal, when COVID's finished and I'm going to go back to work, why am I going to work? Like, why? Right? And that's like what it all boils down to. And I think intrinsically inside of us, each of us has a desire for a purpose and a meaning. And I think faith, like, why are you valuable? Why am I valuable? Why do we have value? Why should we not murder? Right? If it's simply saying society says, well, you shouldn't murder, why not? Because, like, if we're going on evolutionary terms, survival of the fittest. If you don't survive, well, that's a net benefit, right? So, but we all kind of have this thing of like, no, it's wrong to murder. It's wrong. Like, you should be valued. You should be loved, like all these things. And I think that's because God has put this into this world he created, where we were made to love, we're made to have purpose. Like the Bible says that he put Adam and Eve on the earth, and he said, "Go subdue the earth." Like it was a jungle. Like go subdue it. Go forth. Like take charge. Like we were given a directive to go do something. We were made to work. And now I don't think that's just like a hey, work like 16 hours a day. Like that's all you need to. No, there's rest and there's balance. But I think we as people want a purpose. We want a responsibility. And I think there's so many times we hear of people having mental health crisis, and somebody suggests like there's like the physiological response to exercise. You become less depressed if you go and not that's not like a universal or whatever, but like physiologically there is a brain response when you actually doing something. And I don't know, I find it so interesting. And I think to kind of come back to your question, I think with AI and the amount of change, even if people remain the same busyness as they are, I think the amount of uncertainty is going to play a part. And I think we're already seeing that. I saw a statistic the other day that sales of Bible sales are up again. They've climbed a good amount, or a statistically significant amount in the last few years. Last year we saw some studies of, at least specifically in the UK, church attendance is rising, especially in like 20-year-olds, is going up. And I think people are kind of coming into this age of the internet and being so connected to everything. and being so easily able to access all the bad happening in the world. Like bad news sells, you open your social media and oh, this person's bombed that person, this person's been murdered, all these bad things happening, all the bad aspects of different people. Like this person's terrible because of that. This person's terrible because of that. And we are into this thing of just seeing all this bad news, which is so accessible. We're seeing all the failures of man, and we're like, is there something more? And I think it's almost a subconscious thing for a lot of people. There's like this searching going on of like, why? And I think that's the question at the end of the day, which I think faith has the only real answer to.
It's interesting. It's interesting in such an age of information and everything accessible to us that we're going back to some of our core tenets of human connection. And I think it's an interesting time to be alive, where the rate of change, I was thinking about this other day, is people used to stay in jobs for 30, 40 years in the same job. Do you know anyone in our generation that stayed in the same job? You know, I'm talking like being employed by someone for more than 10 years.
Very few. Very few.
I can't think of anyone. And I think this change thing causes anxiety because people have this fear of, oh, well, what's next? We had an existential moment in this office where we were thinking, oh, well, what's the point? You know, you just get to that point of, well, what if AI replaces all of this? I've just got this deep rooted conviction that somewhere deep inside of all of us, we're going to go back to something very primary to what it means to be human, and that's basic community. And if anything, the world's going to get smaller this next chapter as people learn to take care of each other again, learn to have communities where you get together, you love in a different way. So it is exciting. Just as we come to a close and a land, I want to ask you this in line with where the UK is currently. Are you happy with the direction of the country currently? And why or why not?
I think it's very interesting seeing some of the new political parties spring up, because there's obviously a large amount of people who are like, I don't think this is going the right way. I think you can always pick on different policies and different, I don't know, the government, people love complaining about the government. It's like the national pastime. But I think there's a lot of things which definitely can be improved, but also from a perspective of, I think, just plain common sense. There's lots of things which just don't quite add up. And I don't know, you just look at the government at the moment and you're like, I don't know.
Do you think they know?
I don't know.
What is it? So are you optimistic about the future of Britain right now?
Currently, yes. Not specifically because of where we've been headed the past, say, 5-10 years, but because of the reaction and the response I see to where we've been headed. I think so. I was born in South Africa. I moved to the UK when I was 8, and this is my home. I'm like, and everybody asks, "Where are you from?" I'm from the UK, etc. But I love that I don't know, pride for your country. Like, yeah, I built this. I want it to do well. Like, I want the country to be known for being a good country. And
Isn't that racist now these days?
well, some people would tell you that it is, but it's like so cool seeing you driving and you see British flags. Like, when I didn't even realize that recently you haven't seen many British flags, and then like a few months ago they were everywhere. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, you see, the only time I generally see flags waved is at protests. When people are saying, oh, this country or that country, you see flags being waved. But other than that, you don't see them at all. And I think people should be standing up for their country to say, hey, we want to make this a better place. We want it to be somewhere that we can be proud of. We want to live here. I think it's good.
So who would you vote for?
Interesting. So historically I've voted Conservative. Uh, More recently I've been being like Conservative and Labour are just two different versions of the same thing, just faster and slower. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've obviously like Reform has been been going around a lot recently, and they've, according to the polls, been doing quite well. But it's been very interesting looking at Restore and what they've been doing in the last months, really, and how their membership numbers have shot up. I've been seeing more and more of their stuff popping up, and it's just very interesting seeing the kind of the uptake, I guess, and people resonating with various aspects of what they're saying. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure just yet, but I definitely think it's something to look out for pretty well, at least starting now to see, okay, let me be educated about what everyone's saying and what is their track record with actually doing what they're saying. Because I think
Absolutely.
some of the parties say one thing and then they kind of end up not doing anything that they wanted.
Well, final question for you, bro. If you were prime minister or head of AI for this beautiful country, what would you be doing now to prepare this nation for this chapter of history?
I think one of the first things I'd bring it more into schools and potentially move schools on a bit from learning what to think and rather how to think. So at the moment, it's very exam based, you know? Got this exam, learn for the exam, do the exam, forget it. You're basically just learning to pass tests and you're learning information, but you're not learning how to think. You're not learning, okay, how do I make decisions? How do I weigh up opinions? Because I think with AI is going to really make it super easy to access knowledge. But we're going to need to be able to discern is what's the standing on. Because at the moment, it's very much up to the AI companies as to which way the AI leans. Do they say this? Do they say that? There's questions which you can ask AI, like, and you ask it about different groups of people, and it gives totally different answers. Like, you ask the exact same question, and in one case it's racist, in the other case it's not. Like, oh, if you're this color skin, you should be proud of your heritage. If you're this color skin, you should like not talk about it. And it's like, that's coming from the companies that train them. So we as people need to be able to actually accurately discern how to think about something. Don't just believe what you're told, and actually have a conversation. Don't just go on the internet. What does this faceless social media account say? Talk to people around you and actually teach people in schools as they grow up that we need to be able to talk and not lose that human connection and just be kind of taking whatever we're told on the screen.
Mm. And I think that's probably back to one of the dangers in AI is what it's been fed in terms of racism, to and how politically incorrect we get here. But if you have, and I've been going through Piers Morgan's stuff recently, Woke is Broke. I
Yeah.
just read his book, and he's giving all the scenarios where the media were just pushing a narrative that's going in one direction, that this is racist, that's racist, everything was racist. And then it ended up in this like reverse racism where you end up where white people are the only racists and everyone else is able to be proud of their heritage, skin color, whatever. And Google started feeding back that information. And I think for me, the big realization, the danger with that is you could end up with genuine violence towards people if you start changing history to fit a narrative you want, where you start denying. Because if you think of Adolf Hitler, when he rose to power, the German people, I was studying the currency, when the currency was in inflation, you end up with disenchanted people that have someone that stands up for them. And then you see populism rising up across the world,
Yeah.
as we see now, because you can only knock people down for so long. And the information out there that's being fed, I do get concerned with that because I think, man, if in the nice way, I think we're the generation that trusts Google more than anything. If we doubt a fact, what do? We Google it. We
Yeah.
Google it. So if that information has a leaning either way, Because it can go, history swings between the things. We're in big trouble, and it could lead to genuine destruction. And hopefully, what you said, we could actually get someone like you to oversee that in our schooling system and get people to learn how to think and question the assumptions about whatever it is they believe.
Yeah, because it should never be wrong to question. Because if you're never questioning, are you assuming you're perfect? Like, do you assume you or the person teaching you knows everything all the time?
Yeah.
So like to have this questioning and the humility to be like, hey, I might be wrong. Let me ask questions, see what I can find out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, bro, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for
I
having me
really
on.
appreciate it. And I think there'll be a part 2. I'm sure this is going to develop so quickly, so fast. And I'd love to get you on again to have a discussion about faith with some other friends of mine from different faiths and see what happens there.
Yeah,
So,
I'd love to. Thank you for having me on. It's been a great time.
Cool.